Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a Dark Side. At 7 a.m. on May 14th, 1999, police received a 911 call of a wife who was unresponsive in a bathtub. When paramedics arrived on the scene, they found Sharon Guthrie unconscious. How could a healthy woman just have drowned? Let's get into the case of William Boyd Guthrie right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, your weekly true crime podcast telling you of cases of heartbreak that turned to homicide. I am your host, Kai, and in today's episode, we're discussing a case of a woman who mysteriously drowned. Before we begin, I want to say that this episode is sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. I want to thank you for your continued support throughout Lamb's journey. And for those of you who are not part of the Patreon or new to Love and Murder, be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder right now while you're listening so you don't miss a case. If you didn't know, you can also subscribe on our Patreon so that you don't have to hear intros like this one or commercials that are coming up. And you'll get daily Kai Rants, bonuses, and you'll be a sponsor of Love and Murder. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. In the meantime, though, grab your butts, grab your BJ's apple juice, murderandlove.com/BJs, and let's get into some Love and Murder. In July of 1992, William Boyd Guthrie, who was 55, was the reverend of a church in Orleans, Nebraska, along with his wife, Sharon Guthrie, who worked in the church as well. The couple had been married since 1966 and had 3 daughters and lived happily and well respected in their town. However, in July of 1996, William and his family moved to another small town named Wolsey in South Dakota. They ended up living behind the new church, and William received permission from the church board to go back to Nebraska once a month for counseling. On May 14th, 1999, Bill returned from the church, which was basically like walking from your backyard into your house, to find his wife face down in their bathtub. He attempted to remove her unconscious body from the water, but he was only able to turn her over and then drain the tub. He rushed to call 911 and waited for paramedics to arrive. When paramedics arrived, he told them that he tried to resuscitate her himself and he was just able to turn the body over, and then that's when he ran to call them. Now, the other thing I noticed is that he didn't even try to cover her body because, maybe he was in shock, but I know if it was me, I would be trying to cover my loved one's body to just kind of give that semblance of dignity, you know what I'm saying? So they're not coming in and seeing my husband or mother or child or whoever it is just naked like that. That's just me personally. He could have been in shock. I'm not talking bad about him. I'm just saying that's just something I noticed. So EMTs pulled her out of the tub and moved her to a nearby hallway to perform CPR on her. They did everything they could to revive her, but ended up having to transport her to the hospital. The paramedic who ended up taking her out of the tub and was the one who performed the resuscitation efforts on her was soaked with water from said tub. Even though it was drained, she was still wet, so he got wet. At the hospital, Sharon regained some of her heart activity, but she never was able to breathe on her own and never recovered any brain function. So on May 15th, 1999, which is the next day, at age 54, medical professionals declared her dead. What was assumed was that she had apparently passed out while starting her bath and she just had an accident. But this is Love and Murder after all. An autopsy was performed on Sharon's body by forensic pathologist Dr. Brad Randall. And this was done literally the next day. He sent off for blood serum and gastric toxicology. And when that report came back, it showed that she had 2 anti-anxiety drugs in her system, which everyone knew where that came from. That was what she normally took, which was diazepam and lorazepam. Then there was a sedative in her system called oxazepam. And he could tell that the way that the pills were only partially digested in her stomach, that was done within 4 hours before she drowned. However, there was something else that was in her system, which was a very high amount of temazepam, which is a sedative, and it's used to treat insomnia. Now, nobody knew where she got this one from. And with temazepam, you can become paranoid or you can have suicidal thoughts. It does mess with your memory and your judgment and your coordination. The other thing is with this drug, it is only by prescription. So how did she get this? Now, the level that was in her system was enough for her to go unconscious. And it's estimated that she took about 20 temazepam pills. Now, it's possible she could have taken this accidentally and then just tried to go about her day, but 20? How do you take 20 pills accidentally? So in the report, the pathologist wrote, quote, drowned because she was incapacitated by the temazepam dose. And Dr. Randall also said he did not know if her death was accidental. He also said that he didn't know if her death was suicidal or homicidal. So he just wrote on the report that it was not natural and not accidental. So because of this, an investigation into her death began. Beadle County Chief Deputy Sheriff Jim Sheridan is the one who went out to look over the Guthrie household. The problem with investigating the house is that by the time he was able to get back, friends and family had come around thinking they were helping out. Nothing bad, nothing devious. They just thought they were helping out, so they had come around and cleaned up. So Sheriff Sheridan took Bill's statement instead. Bill said that what he normally does every morning was to get up, go to the church for about 10 minutes, and then come back home. So he was still doing the same thing this morning. Nothing changed. He said when he came back home, he noticed that the hallway floor was wet, and when he opened the bathroom door, that's when he found Sharon. He repeated that he did try to take her out of the tub, but she was too heavy for him. So what he did instead was drain the water, and then that's when he called 911. So when Sheriff Sheridan went out and questioned witnesses, they remembered one thing that is really weird. Yeah, when he was outside waiting for the EMS to come outside with his wife, he wasn't wet. Only one part of his body did neighbors remember was wet, was only one knee. And he had on no shoes or socks. So then Sheriff Sheridan was wondering, if you had just gotten home, why didn't you have shoes or socks on? And why weren't you wet if you said you tried to resuscitate her and you tried to pull her out of the tub and you even turned her over, but why was only one knee wet? So when Sheriff Sheridan tried to find out about the temazepam also, like I said, nobody knew where it came from because she took her regular medicines daily. But he did find out from Bill that he had recently been prescribed a sleeping aid. He was having problems sleeping, and the doctor prescribed this for him. He also went to talk to the Guthrie's 3 daughters, who were by this time adults. All 3 daughters, Danielle, Jenna Lou, and Suzanne, said that they knew that their father really was no longer happy in his marriage. He didn't want to be in the marriage anymore. And he would tell Suzanne that he didn't love Sharon anymore, and he actually planned to get a divorce. The only thing was, his middle daughter, Jenna Lou, was getting married in June, and he didn't want to do a divorce before June to kind of mess up the wedding. Then when the sheriff spoke to the youngest daughter, Danielle, she said that, yeah, Dad would constantly tell me that he wanted a divorce. For 6 or 7 years, he has been telling me he wanted a divorce from Mom. He also told me that, he thought she was ugly. He thought she was fat. He hated her. He didn't touch her. She disgusted him so much. And, he just really spoke down on his wife. Also, during the investigation, it was revealed that Bill was actually having an affair. When they asked him about this affair, he said, no, I have no idea what you're talking about, officer. I don't know. Well, yeah. Okay. Yes, I was having an affair. Now, lambs, remember when I said he moved his family from Orleans to Wolsey? Well, the reason is because when he was in Orleans and he was the pastor there was gossip and rumors spreading that he was having an affair with a married woman who served as an elder in his church. This affair was from 1994 to 1999. Now, when news of this affair reached the people in the upper part of his church and his congregation, he told his bosses at the church that this wasn't true. And he gave speeches to his congregation saying, adultery is bad, cheating is bad, whatever. And he denied, obviously, that he was doing this and stopped spreading rumors, stopped spreading falsehoods, whatever. As rumors persisted, his bosses pulled him in again, and he said, look, I cannot have cheated because there's no way for me to be able to consummate with anybody because I'm impotent. And his bosses were like, okay, we hear everything you're saying. We hear all that. But, we still think it's for the best that you move away because these rumors are getting to be too much and it's not a good look. So we're not going to fire you or anything, but we're just going to move you to another church. So that's why he ended up moving to Wolsey. Now, the other thing is, remember when he told his church that he was going to have to go back to Orleans every month for counseling? Yeah, well, by counseling, he meant horizontal mambo, horizontal mambo. And he kept on carrying on his affair. Now, with the woman that he was carrying on the affair with, she said that over the years, they did talk about, quote, him being single at some point so they could be together. Classic line that I've heard said on TV, and other people have, relayed to me what married men say, or you hear it on YouTube or whatever. But anyways, it's never been said to me. I've never dealt with a married man. But as I understand it, this is a classic line. So being that she wanted to be with him, she got a divorce from her husband. However, he didn't get a divorce. The reason he didn't is because he had already started lying to the people in the church and saying that he didn't have an affair. And if he got a divorce and then continued with her, then he felt that news of the affair would be confirmed. And then that could, mess up his future in the ministry and everything like that. So after some time, she got, quote, tired of sneaking around. And in January 1999, she said, it's over. It's done. I'm not doing this anymore. You keep saying that you're going to leave your wife since 94. And look, I waited. I left my husband for you, all of this, and you still can't do it. So absolutely not. I'm done. She said maybe it was time for us to start seeing other people. And she said, but, if you ever leave Sharon, then maybe I'm still here. And, quote, they could date and see how it went. So even though he had moved away, he still went back to her every single month. And on top of that, he would still talk to her on the phone like 2 or 3 times a week. And even in late February, the month that Sharon died, they had been having sex on more than one occasion. Actually, a week after Sharon's funeral, he called her because he was trying to come up and see her. And she said no. So he got mad at her and hung up on her. Dude, you're worried about pretenses, and a week after your funeral, you're calling your freaking mistress, ex-mistress? Wow. After finding all of this out, Sheriff Sheridan got a search warrant for the Guthrie house and Bill's office in the church. It was there that on July 27th, 1999, they seized Bill's computer. Now, while he took the computer over to the IT lab, he continued talking to witnesses. He continued talking to the children, just trying to find out what home life was about. So he finds out that his children, Bill's children, believed that maybe their mom could have literally overdosed on 20 pills because weird things has been happening around the house. So in the months leading up to Sharon's accidental death, there was this one time where this cord had been stretched across the steps in the basement, and she almost tripped. But when she told her family members that she went downstairs because Bill was calling her downstairs, her foot had touched the cord, and then instead of tripping forward, she just touched the cord and she immediately sat back on the steps. And she said that Bill had grabbed her shoulder to keep her from falling. But then when she came to Suzanne, she did tell Suzanne, quote, somebody tried to kill me. So Suzanne, being freaked out, she called her dad and said, Dad, somebody tried to kill Mom. This is what Mom is saying. So Bill told her, calm down. I'll find out what's going on. But when he came home and he talked to Sharon, he told Sharon to stop telling people what happened in the basement. Just stop talking to people because that's going to, force the rumor mills to get started. And he said, I'm going to go to the sheriff and I'm going to talk to the sheriff about it myself. The next day, instead of going to the sheriff, he went to Suzanne and said, hey, yeah, nobody's trying to kill your mother. He told Suzanne that she had, quote, stepped on her shoelace and it wasn't anything like a big deal. So Suzanne called her husband over to come and check these stairs. And he told her that if you look at the stairs, 2 stairs down, there were like shavings on one of the steps, like somebody had been drilling a hole into the step. And on the other side of the wall, there was this round place, like a hole, but it's not really a hole. But there was this round place where something could have been glued into it and like stretched taut against the stairs. And right now there was nothing in there, but it was just weird. And being that the shavings were there, that seemed like it just happened. Then another time, one of the bathroom lights wasn't working. And so Bill bought a lamp so that Sharon could wash her hair in the bathtub because it's dark. She needed to wash her. I guess you just don't want to be in the bathtub while it's dark. And while she was in the bathtub, the lamp fell over. Now, as she's telling the story, she said she thought the dog had bumped the lamp, but Bill was there to catch it. And she said that he got an electrical shock from the incident. And, she's worried about her husband. So she said, let's go to the emergency room. You just got shocked. So he was admitted overnight to the hospital, but they didn't find anything wrong with him. They didn't find any sort of electrical shock or semblance of that could have happened. So they sent him home. However, because of this story, the sheriff went to speak with the doctor who had seen him at that time, which was Dr. Richard Reed. And Dr. Reed said that day, Bill was, quote, extremely anxious, breathing very rapidly and nervous. And he complained, quote, about a lot of pain in various parts of his body. Then on April 15th, 1999, Bill brought Sharon to the clinic and said that she wouldn't wake up. When doctors looked at her, she was, quote, completely out of it. So as doctors are looking her over, he keeps saying, quote, I didn't do anything to her. I didn't do anything to her. He kept saying that. He said it like twice. Dr. Jeff Hansen looked over Sharon and found literally nothing wrong with her. However, he ordered a urine toxicology report to be done, and he saw there were no drugs in her system. So the doctor asked, could she have taken anything? Like, we don't see anything in her system. I don't see anything physically wrong with her. So Bill said, well, she's been sleepwalking and maybe she took Benadryl, maybe she took codeine, maybe she took both at the same time. So they kept her overnight for observation. When she woke up the next day, she didn't remember anything about it, but she said that, I think it was something I did. I probably took Benadryl and some herbal diet pills that I've been taking. So maybe I overdid it. I'm not sure. I did this because I was trying to lose weight for my daughter's wedding. That's why I was taking the herbal diet pills. And I don't know, maybe they just counteracted each other and made me pass out. And when the sheriff, went around asking why she was trying to lose the weight, everybody did say that, yeah, she was trying to lose the weight before her daughter's wedding, but also she felt bad about herself because Bill was constantly, making her feel bad, telling her she's fat, she's ugly, he doesn't like her, he's disgusted, repulsed by her. Ugh, don't touch me. And somebody said that she once said, quote, as soon as I lose weight, Bill is going to take me on a cruise. Now, lambs, what would you do if your wife or husband is telling you they find you utterly disgusting? Maybe you need to lose weight. Maybe you need to Maybe you need to XYZ. I don't want to touch you. You disgust me. Like, what would you do? Because my thing is, if I disgust you this much, why are you still here then? I mean, yeah, I could lose weight, but anything can happen. And, when you get older, more than likely you're going to gain the weight back. I could break my leg and gain the weight back. That is something that's superficial. So if you don't like me because I have weight on me, why are you still here? Again, I could lose the weight, but you're only with me because I'm 150 pounds or something like that, 140, 130 pounds. Is that the only reason why you're with me? So by now, Sheriff Sheridan is getting some reports from the computer specialist who was looking over Bill's computer. He said that his office computer had been used to search numerous things on interesting subjects online. Subjects like how to have an accident in the bathroom, drowning in the bathroom. Like, for instance, 2 days before the fallen lamp incident, there was a search that said, quote, household accidents and bathtub accidents. Now, it's possible that it could have been Sharon looking for this. But her children said she didn't even know how to use the computer, let alone the internet. She really didn't even understand the internet. One of her daughters had shown her how to browse the net once, but she didn't understand it, nor was she interested in it. And the only thing she did know how to do is like send and check her email. So it wasn't her doing this. Let's take a moment for a commercial break and dive deeper into Love and Murder with the Lamb Patreon Supporters Club. Join us on patreon.com/Love and Murder, or you're welcome to join us on either Spotify or Spreaker as well. All of the links for our supporter clubs on either platform is in the show notes below for ease of access. As a Lamb supporter, you get intro-free episodes and commercial-free episodes, so you get to the heart of the case with no interruptions. Not only that, but you get bonuses by being a part of the Lamb Supporters Club. You get things like daily Kai rants and monthly bonus episodes. And if you join through our Patreon, you get extra perks as well, like case extras and more bonus episodes. If there are videos done, those are only done through our Patreon. Now, as I've told you, I'm trying to reach 500 lambs by the end of season 4. And with your help, I'll be able to accomplish that. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. Or if you want to sign up on any other platform like Spotify or Spreaker, you can get those links in the show notes below. Come on over. I'm saving a spot just for you. In the beginning of the episode, I let you know about getting your BJ's apple juice. What is all that about? Well, you can support Love and Murder by simply signing up for your BJ's membership using my link. I shop at BJ's and I save, when I tell you, a ton of money. I'm not even joking with you. I save a ton of money, and I used to think that BJ's were only for large families, but I only have a small family, and I'm able to shop at BJ's, save money, and for certain things, I only have to go shopping once a month. I signed up as BJ's initially as just a test to see how much money I can save with my grocery shopping. And so far, I have been a BJ's member for 2 years now, and I will not stop. I love BJ's. So when I say go and get your BJ's apple juice, it is organic apple juice that comes together in 2 bottles, 2 96 fluid ounce bottles, and you get it for a very affordable price. It's Honeycrisp apples, 100% organic, 100% juice, and 100% delicious. So this is an excellent way you can support Love and Murder and support yourself, because if you use my link to sign up for your BJ's membership, you save $35 for the year on the membership. So with grocery prices the way it is today, isn't it time for you to save money? Just go to murderandlove.com/BJ's and start your BJ's journey today. Save $35 on your first year's membership. murderandlove.com/BJ's. And now, back to the show. Investigators also found out that during the month of April, in addition to the searches he made on household accidents, he also searched details about medications such as lorazepam, Activan, Ambien, and TCA. One of the searches actually brought up a website with a book called, quote, Worst Pills, Best Pills, a consumer's guide to avoiding drug-induced deaths or illnesses. Listed among the 160 do not use prescription was a medication called Restoril, or, you guessed it, temazepam. The last search happened on April 27th on this computer. 2 days after that search, on April 29th, investigators found out that Bill had gone to a clinic complaining that he couldn't sleep. Physician assistant Jean Thompson said that they started discussing sleeping medications. She suggested he take Ambien, and he said no. He had taken both Xanax and Ambien in the past, and it hadn't helped him. So then she suggested temazepam, and he said, well, I mean, it does have side effects, but should I really take this? And she said, yeah, you should take this. So he agreed to the temazepam. However, when the sheriff went through his medical records going back 10 years, he saw nothing about sleeping problems or him using any previous prescriptions for sleeping problems. So the PA gave him a prescription for 15 capsules at 30 milligrams each, and it was supposed to have 3 refills. He was supposed to only take 1 at bedtime. Later on in that same day, Sharon called the PA to tell her that her husband had, quote, lost the prescription and asked if she would mind calling a second one in for him. So PA Thompson called in a prescription to Stats Drugs. So what actually ended up happening is Bill had gone to Kmart that afternoon and filled his prescription. And then 2 hours later, he went to Stats Drugs and filled the other one. So what is he doing with 2 bottles of temazepam? And now it's 30 capsules that he has. On May 4th, investigators saw that a search was conducted on the computer again, and specifically this time, the search was on temazepam. On May 12th, Sharon picked up another refill at Stats Drug of the temazepam. And on May 13th, which is now the day before Sharon had her drowning accident, quote unquote accident, Bill picked up another refill of the temazepam at Kmart. So now he has 60 tablets that he was able to get in 2 weeks, which I don't know how that works. How are you able to do that? They literally, but you know what? This is back in the day, so maybe. Because I know nowadays they would literally avoid that happening. But again, this is back in the day. It's more paper trails than computer trails. So I guess it's easier for it to happen back then than it is for it to happen now. So investigators went back to the toxicology report, and the doctor had said there were some pills in her system that hadn't digested yet, but these were the pills that she normally takes. There was no pill for the temazepam in her system. They just saw it in her system. They estimated she had to have taken about 20, and this is weird. How come there's no temazepam pills dissolved in her stomach or partly dissolved in her stomach, but the other pills were partly dissolved in her stomach? So the sheriff went back and spoke with the Guthrie children, and he found out that Sharon drank chocolate milk every single day, like every day in the morning. And he knew through the investigation that with Restoril, the way Restoril is set up is in capsules. So you could literally break them apart in half, and there's a powder in there. And you can just pour them in whatever. And he also found out that Restoril is both odorless and tasteless. So it's now looking more and more like this was poured into chocolate milk, stirred, and given to her, or she took it. So the investigator went to speak with the people who had come over to the house and cleaned the house. And one of Sharon's friends said, yeah, when I was cleaning up the kitchen, there was flour on the floor and flour on the countertop, and I just cleaned those up. So now the sheriff decided like he was going to go all the way back to the beginning. Let's start over. Let me go back and read everyone's account of what happened. So he saw that Bill had given his report of what happened. But then he saw that Susan said her father told her something else. He said that he did get Sharon out of the tub himself, and then he called 911, where, remember, he kept saying that he couldn't get her out. The only thing he could do was turn her over. On the 911 call, he said that. When the police got there, he said that. And when he was interrogated again, he said that he couldn't get her out. Sharon's brother, Larry Provence, also said that when Bill told him what happened about, what was going on with Sharon's death and everything, he said each time his story changed. The details changed just a little bit each time. So he kind of wasn't buying it. One of his bosses at work, William Davis, said that Bill had told him that the night before Sharon's death, Sharon awoke him because she had been sleepwalking and walking around the house. So I guess instead of watching his wife or putting her back to bed or making sure she's safe, Bill decided to go over to the church and work on his sermon. And then when he came back an hour later, he found water, quote, running out of the bathroom and down the stairs. He said that's when he ran up to the bathroom and found Sharon. He tried to resuscitate her, but he didn't know CPR, so he just called 911. William Davis, also thought it was weird that he would mention that, right after Sharon died, he said, quote, "We were getting along great." Whereas before, he had continuously told Davis that he wanted a divorce. So that was weird. "Oh, my wife died, but we were getting along great, by the way. But oh, my wife is dead." That's literally like how it went. So after amazing police work and extraordinary detective work, Bill was arrested on August 27th, 1999 and charged with first-degree murder. 3 days later, when he appeared for arraignment, he was ordered to be held without bond. And they asked him, "How do you plead?" And what do you think he pled, Lambs?
Not guilty.
On January 10th, 2000, his trial started. And the prosecution and defense, this is what they did. Was it a murder? Was it a suicide? Various witnesses were called, including everybody who showed up the day Sharon died, computer specialists, people from the church, the children, doctors, basically everyone the investigator went through and talked to, and even more. They even called a clinical psychologist who specialized in suicide, and they're called a suicidologist. Did you know that? I'd never, ever heard of that in my life. He was a suicidologist, a clinical psychologist, and the executive director of the American Association of Suicidology. And his name was Dr. Alan Berman. When they asked him to explain basically to the court what a suicidologist is, he said, "It's a person who studies suicidal death, quote, primarily in terms of learning about the character of individuals who are suicidal and those that do commit suicide and the circumstances that surround suicidal death." Bill's lawyers objected to this and said that these theories are not scientifically validated, so they shouldn't have this guy on the stand. But the judge allowed it. So Dr. Berman said that in his opinion, Sharon wasn't suicidal because she had a very minimum amount of the predisposition for the risk factors. She had no history of mental illness, no depression. She didn't have a physical illness, significant physical illnesses. She didn't have a dependency on drugs. And nobody ever said she ever talked about suicide. Her background in her family didn't show that anybody had a history of suicidal behavior. I mean, yeah, her husband was having an affair and she'd known about it for some time, but that wasn't enough in his opinion to make somebody with her background want to commit suicide. Not only that, but on the flip side, he said there were so many reasons that she would want to live. She was excited for her daughter's wedding. The fact that she was very self-conscious about her weight. She wouldn't have drowned herself while she was naked because she wouldn't have wanted anybody to see her naked. And then another thing is, statistically speaking, 2% of women kill themselves by drowning in the bathtub. Only 2%. And of those 2%, 2% will die by lying back and going to sleep in the tub. So he finished up by saying, in his opinion, quote, "Sharon Guthrie did not die by suicide. It is my considered opinion to a high degree of certainty that Sharon Guthrie did not die by suicide." And this is what he said. So twice he said it. So after all that went through, everyone who was called to the stand, all the witnesses, the specialist, everybody, it was the defense's turn. And they said, "Your Honor, I would like to present something to the court. May we approach the bench?" Approach. Exhibit A, a suicide note. So of course, the prosecution is like, wait. May we approach the bench? Look, we've never seen this suicide note. They're supposed to put everything through us. We've never seen this. When did this come about? And the defense lawyer said, "Oh, he gave it to us about 7 months ago. He happened to find it after Sharon had died, and he gave it to us in mid-June. And the reason why he didn't tell anybody about the note is because, quote, it had been given to him in confidence and he was not authorized to release it until yesterday." So the prosecution tried to have this note dismissed because, again, this just showing up, but the court allowed it to be submitted under the condition that the experts were going to have an opportunity to examine it and go through like the fingerprinting on it and everything like that. So they said yes. So then they called Bill to the stand just to find out, how did this note come about? How did you find this note? And he said he found it in the church office on June 10th, which was like 3 weeks after Sharon drowned. He said it said, quote, written by Sharon, and he said it was placed in a book that, quote, Sharon and I used for preparing bulletins. Why would she do that if she's leaving a suicide note? Why would she leave it in a book that maybe you're going to find? And he also said he didn't tell anybody except the fellow minister and his attorney. 5 days after finding it, that's when he gave it to his attorney. And he never told his families about it. He never told police about it, nothing. The note, which wasn't signed, was dated the day before Sharon's death, and it was addressed to Suzanne. So it was dated May 13th, 1999. Basically, I'm reading a note to you now. It says, Dear Suzanne, I am sorry I ruined your wedding. Your dad told me about your concerns of my interfering with Janulu's and the possibility I might ruin hers. I won't be there, so put your mind at ease. You will understand after the wedding is done. I love you all, Mom. Defense also said that 5 days before the trial, they had hired someone named Cynthia Orton to examine the note for fingerprints. So Orton got some of Sharon's fingerprints from off of her personal stuff. So when she lifted prints off of it, she got 4 strong prints that she didn't really have time to analyze it right before trial because it's only 5 days. But the 4 prints, she couldn't even put it towards Bill or his attorney, but she couldn't put it towards Sharon either. She did testify that the prints were left by someone who was, quote, very sweaty, and sweating is normal for people like thinking about suicide. So she thought that someone who was intended to commit suicide handled the note. Now, she used a chemical called ninhydrin to get these fingerprints off of it. And when the prosecution gave the note to their person, he used a different kind of chemical to reveal the prints. However, because of the 2 different chemicals that both developers had used, it kind of counteracted each other. And what the prosecution's examiner had used had actually wiped out some of the coloration that Cynthia had originally found on the fingerprints. So basically what all that means is it was kind of ruined. You can't really see whose fingerprints it is, but it's not Bill's and it's not his attorney's, and they can't really be sure if it's Sharon's. Now, to prove that the note was not written by Bill, the defense called a computer specialist who said that he did examine the contents of the church's computer, which is the only computer that they knew they had, and there was no trace of this note ever being written on this computer. So for the moment, the prosecution rested on this case, but they're going to go back and touch on it. Instead, they brought up the fact that on July 26, 1999, when they were kind of starting to suspect Bill, because Suzanne was suspecting Bill as well, they asked her if she would wear a wire, and she said she would.
I need to know some answers.
Okay, ask.
You had an affair.
No. Where did you hear that?
I've heard it from everybody, Dad. They have a lot on you, Dad. And I need to know the truth in all of this. I'm on your side. I don't want to think that you've done the things that you've done.
What do you think that I did?
They think you did, Mom. There's medicine missing.
I don't know anything about medicine that's missing.
So although he didn't say anything, she did report back with the fact that he seemed like he was nervous and he refused to make eye contact with her. And 2 days after this recording, he came to Suzanne's workplace and he said that, quote, he had told Mom the evening before her death that he had told her about the affair and that he was going to divorce her. He said that she had an anxiety attack and this is why he thought she had committed suicide the next day. However, Suzanne told investigators that she had called her mother that same night that her dad is talking about, and she had wanted something about a pot or something, and she agreed to bring it over the next morning. She said her mother didn't have any tones of stress or emotional distress in her voice. She just sounded normal. So she wasn't sure about the story her dad was telling her. So later on in the trial, it came out that, remember they're saying that they tested the computer, the work computer, and there was no traces of the note being written on this computer? Well, Bill had a second computer that he didn't know they knew about. And this computer was in their house. Investigators didn't, take it. They said it looked like it hadn't been used, so they never really looked into it. However, because of the onset of this note, they decided it's time to look at it. He had actually asked, after he had gotten arrested, Suzanne and his son-in-law to take some of his household belongings and put it in storage. And among those that he asked to put in storage was this computer and the printer connected to it. So now the prosecution wanted to get this computer and get it tested. So they asked the son-in-law to grab the computer and bring it with them. So the son-in-law did. The defense moved to suppress this evidence, saying that it was seized illegally, and the court said, nope, we're going to let it go, just like we let your suicide note in. So on this computer, they found a document with similarities to the note that Bill had given to his attorney. The document had been made on August 7th, 1999, and like the document that supposedly said was Sharon's suicide note, it was dated on May 13th. The font was similar, the margin size was similar, the space in between words was identical, and even errors in the note were exactly the same. But there were some differences. The body of the note was missing. It only had the date and the words, "I love you, Mom," but without the word, quote, "all" in that line. Nonetheless, they said that with all these similarities, it's way too much coincidence, and who would be writing, "I love you, Mom," on August 7th, 1999, when Mom is no longer here? According to the expert, additional lines could have been added and printed out, and then the computer was turned off, so it was deleted and not saved, because back then it didn't auto-save. So that's definitely what could have happened. So they called Bill to the stand and said, hey, we found this on your home. First of all, we found your home computer that you didn't know that we knew, that you knew, that we knew, that you knew that we had. And on this computer, there was a document. Now, are you the one who did this document? Because Sharon wasn't alive at this time. And he said, quote, "I probably did, but I don't remember it." And he said, well, this is a suicide note, so did you make it? And he said, I did not make this, quote, suicide note. But he said that he saw the note, quote, quite a while before July 26, 1999. They also found another note saying that, she was going to commit suicide, and it had various reasons as to why she was supposedly going to commit suicide. One of them was, quote, "I'm upset that you had an affair and have not come clean with me. I have thoughts of ending my life and you would have to face up to it. Believe me, I know how to do it." According to the state, this document was made on August 11th. Bill agreed that he wrote this one, but it was basically as a way of working through the emotional trauma of Sharon's death to, quote, try to bring some reason into what happened. How does that make sense? You wrote a suicide note so you can work through trauma? Wait, let me rephrase that. You wrote your wife's suicide note so you could try and bring some reason to what happened? That doesn't even make sense. So, after a 2-week trial and then 5 hours of deliberation, when the jury came back, based on everything they had seen, everything they had heard, they found Bill
guilty
of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Of course, he turned around and appealed this conviction. He said, basically, the testimony wasn't properly allowed on the question of suicide, so they didn't talk enough about suicide, and they didn't really look at if it was a possible suicide. He said they didn't allow to suppress evidence obtained during trial, which they should have, and so on and so forth. And they were talking about the fingerprint expert, which she never could figure out whose fingerprints was on there, so on and so forth. And this is what they were basing off of to try and get the appeal granted. And the judge said, no, you sit there, all the evidence points to you doing this. No evidence pointed to her committing suicide. No matter how much you wanted it to happen, suddenly this suicide note appears out of nowhere. So he said, no, you stay in prison. Now, Susan believes that her father murdered her mother, but the youngest daughter does not believe that. She still stands with her father, and she does not believe that. I don't know what the middle daughter believes. Then, on July 16th, 2011, after serving 11 years in prison, a now 66-year-old William Guthrie died. It's not saying his exact cause of death, but he did end up dying in prison. Now, that was a topsy-turvy story. I can't believe he tried when it was turning out, it was looking like she didn't commit suicide. Suddenly he was like, bam, Uno reverse, suicide note. What you got now? Did you really try that? And it goes back to, he thought he deleted everything. Like, oh, let's just write this up and delete it. Everything is still, you can find anything on your computer. You literally have to be an expert to be able to delete stuff from your phone or computer. I don't even know how you would delete your footprint, because even if you were able to delete it off your computer, there's still a footprint. That was just the most shocking part to me. He just produced a suicide note. Look at this, Your Honor. Clearly, she committed suicide. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I want to know what y'all think about that. And do you think he murdered her? So I'm going to put for the poll out this week, do you think Bill murdered Sharon, or do you think it was a suicide? That is the poll question for this week. And also, don't forget that I want to hear your thoughts on this case as well. Now, let's go into what your thoughts were on last week's episode, which was, remember, it was Texas baby tortured for 30 hours by mother and boyfriend. It was the murder of Amora Bain Carson. That one was really, really hard for me to do. And it took a long time for me to get through, for me to research, record, edit, and then it really messed up my week because it just messed up my brain. So Nick said, despicable, disgusting, and incomprehensible. Nick, I completely agree with you. Oh my God, how much do I agree with you? And Hill Shaniel said, Kai, this is so horrible for the baby girl. I can't believe she, the mom, sat there and allowed this to happen to her baby girl. I feel she should have been given the death sentence also. Look, I don't even want to go back and think about that case. Like, I can't even imagine. My imagination is very vivid, and I'm trying not to think about the sounds that were coming from that room while the mom sat there like, I'm getting angry all over again. So I'm not going to think about it. So the poll question was, who do you think is responsible for this horrendous crime? And the options were Blaine, Jessica, both of them, or none of them. 18.2% of you said only Blaine, and 81.8% of you said both of them, which I couldn't agree with more. So that is the case of William Boyd Guthrie and Sharon Guthrie. I want to hear from you, so go ahead and answer the poll question. Do you think he murdered her? Do you think it was a suicide? And let me know what your thoughts are about this episode as well. And before you go, don't forget that an easy and free way to help me out is by simply sharing this episode. Just go ahead and that share button right there, click on it. Yep. And hit share. Share to your Instagram, share to your Facebook, share to your Instagram, share to your Facebook, share to your TikTok, share to your mom, brother, husband, best friend, true crime buddy. Share. And as always, I end each episode by reminding you that it's all love and no murder, y'all. Bye. Hey, before you go, don't forget to give me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on. That'll help get the word out about Love and Murder, and it'll help bring Lamb up in the charts. Now, you know you want that, just like I want that. So just go ahead and just hit 5 stars right there before you leave. 5. Thank you so much. Bye.